There we go, recording. So yeah, it's one of those things that needs to be talked about more, especially when it comes to women's health, especially when it comes to menopause, generally health in general. You're going to learn today that it controls the vast majority of functionalities inside your and my body. And as again, so you'll learn today, unfortunately, it is during the phase that you're going through right now, whether peri or menopause, your gut microbiome diversity changes when you go through menopause. Happens happens to all women. It's not something you can avoid. It's not something that you're going to be able to stop. But it is something we need to try and slow up, try and strengthen the integrity of the gut microbiome. But the shift generally is unavoidable. So it happens to sort of every single woman as you go through menopause. So the gut microbiome is yeah, how to heal essentially. If this is your first session, by the way, first session watching, which I can see regular people. I can see our clients as well. This is Viola and myself. It's my wife. We are, come on in, Patty. I'm obviously your host. If you've been inside the menopause support group for a while, or if you've been coaching with us, we do these events inside our coaching program. We have weekly workshops like this. We are, oh, Michelle B back in the building. We are menopause practitioners, nutritionists, and personal trainers, right? We run our own program called the MYM Club, but really I want to talk about gut today, right? I want to talk about what is the gut microbiome, so you can run away with this and yeah, add it to your knowledge bank. The gut microbiome really consists of 100 trillion microbes, mostly found in the large intestine. The gut microbiome is actually created at the time of our birth, right? Which is amazing. So most of the gut microbiome that we actually get, skipped ahead a bit too far. Most of the gut microbiome that we actually get is from your mother's vaginal canal. So as you're going through that birth passage, you're getting loads of this sort of, sounds crude, but loads of this bacteria, good bacteria as well. So this is why if you've had a C-section, like if you were delivered by a C-section, sometimes you've got slightly weakened gut microbiome as children who have, had a natural birth, right? So if not anything different that causes, like massive concerns, oh, I'm destined for this. It's not like that. It's just that you get a slightly different microbiome at birth. Sorry, however we're delivered, from child, from your mother, right? Now, from there, it's actually driven mainly by our lifestyle. So after that, it's driven by mostly our lifestyle. There's things that you're going to learn today, that how the gut microbiome controls sex hormones. Again, when we go through, well, when you go through menopause, you sort of lose or they become severely diminished the sex hormones, and that's one of the reasons why it alters the gut microbiome. But the vast majority of the microbiome is built from physically what we're putting in to the body. So it doesn't develop itself. It relies on what we feed our body, and we need to feed that microbiome. So let's learn more about what the microbiome is, how it affects our health, right? Firstly, this is probably what most people think about when we talk about gut microbiome. It's functionality is sort of digestion and nutrient absorption. So the gut microbiome aids in the absorption of nutrients in our diet to sort of aid that hormone regulation, fat storage, vitamin synthesis. Now, a little bit of a science fact: when you go through menopause, the intestinal linings, so the linings of our linings of your gut, tend to be thin. Right? Happens for all women. Again, you can't avoid that. So the walling of the intestines become thinner, and this changes the level of how your bodies can absorb stuff. So and it's the same thing with the vaginal walls, right? Very thin as well. And that's what causes a lot of pain during like sort of intercourse and stuff. It causes a lot of vaginal dryness. It causes a lot of vaginal atrophy. So the lining of the vaginal walls get thinner and the linings of intestinal walls get thinner, right? The joys of being a woman, right? When this happens, the body is in the intestine, the body can't digest at the same rate. And this is why and this is why also I don't recommend normally, supplements prior to food. with food, it's fine, right? Because the bodies can absorb, and this is the same for me as well, for men and women, right? Food, food is going to be more easily digested, faster really than supplements. And that's why I'm against sort of utilizing supplements over food because there isn't a lot of information, studies really, that shows that body's going to actually absorb the totality of those. There's a lot of studies that show that the absorption decreases in supplements, um, and you can excrete a lot of the rest of it out in your urine, whereas in food it's going to be anywhere between 60 and 80% that you're actually going to absorb, right? The minerals and stuff you're going to absorb. So yeah, this is just some little information, but one of the most common things that when we think about the gut microbiome is how do we digest our food, right? It's the micro the that's probably the thing that people think about most, right? They think bloating, they think food doesn't agree with me, my digestion's crap, my gut microbiome's flawed or whatever, right? It's not just the same. Like one of the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things I think the gut microbiome controls is actually the immune system. Everything is about us, getting sick, our immune system functionality. It's all centered on how healthy that gut microbiome is. So 70 to 80% of the entire immune system in the human body is located inside of the gut, right? Another thing I personally love about the gut is that sort of gut brain axis I'm going to tell you about, right? So the gut brain axis, here we go, is this is where things get interesting, right? So serotonin, that's the main mood hormone. 90% of it is made inside the gut. So this hormone regulates mood. It can regulate your sleep in the sense that, if people struggle with a lot of nightmares or stress sleep or anxiety, anxiolytic sleep, which is, sleep anxiety, maybe they've got very, very vivid dreams. That hormone serotonin produces that, and that also aids digestion, right? There's another hormone that we look at, helps reduce stress and anxiety. Dopamine is, they're all linked inside the gut. You've got a GABA there that helps reduce stress and anxiety. You can supplement with that as well. It's a pretty handy supplement. But you want to be thinking when I'm talking about this, you want to be thinking about the types of foods you're putting in because these are the types of things that are going to come out, right? Sometimes when we think about mood hormones being produced in the brain, actually the vast majority of the mood hormones are actually made and regulated inside of the gut. So dopamine influences motivation and pleasure. Loads of people struggle with motivation. Loads of people struggle with, pleasure. The depressive symptoms. We see a lot of mood hormone or main mood symptoms of menopause right there. Mood swings, low moods, irritability, high levels of stress, um, you know, sort of up and down feelings, anxiety, motivation, all of those very, very common symptoms, where are they all produced? They're produced in the gut. So if you have a disrupted microbiome, it's going to be linked to, well, it's definitely linked to anxiety, depression, brain fog, and generally cognitive decline. And that's also why when we look at rates of depression in both men and women, one of the very first few things that the scientists look at is okay, how are we treating the gut? The fourth sort of thing that the gut can control is okay. Let me just touch on this. I forgot about this slide. This slide is pretty relevant because people don't think about cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's with relations to gut. But a disrupted microbiome there's a paper here. It can lead to something called type 3 diabetes. That's Alzheimer's, essentially. Paper shows a relationship here between a poor gut microbiota and the incidence of Alzheimer's. Now, this is why I find, Alzheimer's or any sort of cognitive decline is hitting, somebody or somebody has been hit in your family with it, right? My dad was struggled with dementia, passed away a few years back now. Such a challenging thing to experience, and this is like if I would have knew this, he got ill. It would be like 19 years ago now. But if I would have known this, I would have loved to have if I'd have known this in advance, I would have loved to have gone, hey, we need to do this, this, and this. with your nutrition. Um, and this paper only came out in 2016, by the way. So you can see the relationship there between the gut brain axis, between what you feed yourself and the impact it has on your cognition. So that's something to think about. Keep that as we're going through this. Then we've got gut metabolism and weight management. One of the first things that you would see if you've got a bit of an issue with the gut is either weight loss resistance, you just can't lose weight, you're doing everything right, you can't lose weight. It does become harder to lose weight. So we typically see an increase in weight in menopause. And sometimes we see individuals find it harder to lose that weight. It's commonly verbalized as weight loss resistance. Another thing is, that's a big thing. We speak to hundreds of women each day, and that is one thing that comes up. Another thing is just hormonal balance. The gut health in general helps the metabolism, the regulation of various hormones, including estrogen, thyroid hormones, and that lovely thing that we always talk about, cortisol. And all of these are regulated inside of the gut. They're, one of the very first things that when cortisol gets sort of dysregulated and chronically elevated is it inflames your intestines. Now, what happens when you are stressed or you've got chronically inflamed intestines? You bloat, you cannot handle food well. Your digestion goes to shit. Figuratively, literally, actually. And we talk about this a lot. So it inflames your intestines, makes things like bowel movement, passage slower, constipation, trapped wind, bloating, painful bowels even. So the cortisol and that gut health, again, they're linked very closely. Now, that gut microbiome helps regulate hormones involved in appetite and digestion. So typically, when we see gut health being knocked off or poor levels of gut health, again, we would also see hunger cues being spiked. So, a desire to eat sometimes. Sometimes it's very, it changes between person, but sometimes it could be not feeling hungry. It could be a change to our cravings. It could be, something that's more salty, like, so normally like salty cravings. It could be that you switch to sugar cravings. The hormones, again, like there's like leptin in the stomach. That is the name of the hormone that, and there's ghrelin. And ghrelin is the when your belly growls. That's the way I used to always remember it when I was learning. Ghrelin is like a gremlin in your stomach. It's basically a hunger. It's like signaling to the brain, I'm hungry. Get some food, get some calories, and get some food in. Right. Leptin is the thing that controls satiation, so feelings of fullness. Right. So it's going to impact these if you've got dysregulated gut balance. So if you are feeding yourself sugar, loads of crap, loads of crap, loads of crap consistently, let's say for months, maybe even years, it's going to be potentially out of whack, right? We have gut and inflammation. So gut and inflammation is huge, right? We know if the gut is inflamed, the gut lining is compromised. What we'll experience there is undigested food particles and toxins will enter the bloodstream. That triggers inflammation. We call it low grade inflammation. So it's like a low grade infection, right? A problem needs to be addressed. But as soon as that gut microbiome is altered and it can't sort of impact the gut lining, it can't keep the integrity of the gut lining together, it can't stop foods from entering into the stomach out of the gut, out of the intestines and into the bloodstream. Toxins that will trigger that general inflammation in the body, right? And then we've got another thing, which is it takes us to the liver. So the liver is this is all connected, right? It's connected to our liver in terms of, when I talk about when people say, "Oh yeah, I have a lemon in the morning and a detox, and it helps me with bloating," like it really does not do that much. You know, Probably what's happening there is more the placebo effect. You think it's doing well, you think it's doing a good job, so therefore you can actually have positive effects when you believe in something so much. Um, but it doesn't help bloating. Doesn't really do that much. If you like to do it, fantastic, that's fine. But your whole body has the entire gut, has the liver that helps remove toxins and doing its own detox consistently, 24 hours a day. That little squeeze of lemon into that water in the morning, ladies, I'm sorry, it's not doing much compared to what your gut and your actual liver is doing, working on a daily basis. It's 0.0001%. So the gut microbiome affects your liver detoxification pathways. So your liver, if you don't know, it's crucially important, plays a central role in detoxifying and processing hormones. So what we'll sometimes see is if somebody is has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, um, probably their gut microbiota is a bit skewed as well. Needs a bit needs addressing because you can't detox well. The liver's under duress. It needs to be helped out basically. Um, Now that detox shake that you think is going to make all the difference for you, not going to do anything. Not going to do anything. You know that little I'm having this thing from insert company. I'm doing this. It's not doing anything. You've probably if you've got an AFLD or you've got any sort of bloating stuff, you've probably got heightened gut microbiota that is not optimal. We need to shift it to a healthier strain. And the way we do that is with, specific type foods. But if we look at what is happening in your gut and why your liver is not able to function that well, you will notice patterns in the gut. All right, you can see all I'm gonna go through some stuff in a second here. You can see all of the sort of functionalities that happens in and around the gut, right? It controls your cravings, your nutrient absorption, your stress, your anxiety, the hormone balancing, the brain health, the hunger cues. When I say brain health, those symptom, the mental type symptoms, mood, motivation, anxiety, lethargy as well as I suppose can be included in that. It controls your immune system. It regulates your metabolism to help you lose weight. It regulates your mood. It controls inflammation. It's a lot, right? So the gut does loads. But sometimes when we talk about your gut health, people just think, oh, are you bloated or you're not? Right? In reality, look what the gut's controlling. It's heaps. So when we're asking that question, what's your gut health like? We're asking all these questions. What's your inflammation like? What's your mood quality like? What's your body's ability to actually lose water weight? Just, you know, what is your immune system like? What are your hunger cues like? What is your overall brain energy like? Are you got brain fog? What are your general, hormonal health? How do you feel like your general hormonal health is? What is your stress and anxiety like? Do you get driving anxiety, like we've just seen come up recently? How does your body actually absorb nutrients, do you feel? That's what we're talking about when we ask that question. What is your gut health like? Unfortunately, the only thing that people seem to care about now with social media is bloating, and that's usually just like an outward sign that your body gives you all of these things. All of these things are knocked off. So when your body's trying to give you a visual sign, at that point, starting to do the bloating, whether it's irregular gas, the bowel movement, so on, we could call those more sort of like external top tier symptoms of poor gut health. But underneath all that, all this other stuff is usually sort of not in alignment. It's not doing particularly well. Um, so yeah, it's central to our entire health. Again, this is for men and women. This is not just a case for women having, special fantastic guts. Although you are impacted more than what I will be, right? The gut microbiome does control our health for both of us. But as you go into menopause, you will have a diminished ability. Well, it changes the gut microbiome. It just changes it. And you know what? So if we need a good diversity of gut microbiome to have good health, how do we make the diversity of the gut microbiome good? And that's what I want to dive into now, right? Because ultimately, that's what we're all here for, right? First thing is a massive factor, and the most overarching factor is diet. Everything else that we're going to talk about here now doesn't matter if you do not have this in line. If you don't feed your body what it needs, nothing else is going to be significant to override that. So the biggest makeup of your gut microbiome is what you're actually putting into your body. Have a think about what you're putting into your body now. What are you feeding your microbiome with? Lifestyle. Lifestyle is the next factor. Things like stress, things like medications, things like undereating, all of these kind of more lifestyle aspects play a role in your overall gut microbiome. Not sleeping at night going to bed late at night, waking up in the morning, undersleeping, going to be an issue. We also have sex hormones. I mentioned earlier, they control the diversity of the gut microbiome. Estrogen plays a massive functionality in terms of, um, well, just in terms of regulating the gut microbiome and just overall gut functionality. In terms of its motility, its ability to kind of pull toxins out and flush things through. But we've also mentioned at the very start genetics. Remember the birth canal? Remember I mentioned that? Genetics, birth passage, environment, right? This is something we can't change at this stage of life. We can't change our birth passage now, and we can typically change the environment that we grew up in, right? We can't change what we have grown up in. There's particular exposure we were to, good and bad, any potential toxins. Obviously, as an adult, we control that more environment, we can move, we can, but we have a specific baseline now. And this is not just a case of going, oh, well, I didn't have a healthy birth passage. I didn't really have a healthy environment for my gut microbiome as a child. I was just fed, chicken nuggets and chips. So I'm doomed. I'm going to have this poor health for the rest of my life. No, it's not the case. A gut microbiome changes a lot. It can change in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So if even if you've got poor quality gut now or in the past, doesn't matter. It changes. It's going to regulate. It's going to change on a frequent basis based on what you're feeding it because of diet. So everything that you're eating and feeding, that's what your gut microbiome thrives on. It's not related to. It's not really not related much more to what happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. Because of that, these are the three things that we focus on. These three things. And you know, if someone was struggling with those you know, how would we look at somebody that's struggling with any of those symptoms? What is their nutrition like? What is their overall lifestyle like? Are they drinking alcohol? What are their sex hormones going on? Are they on HRT? So this sometimes the sex hormone stuff can be a bit of an issue when girls go on, the contraceptive pill. When young girls go on the pill, and so on, can see an increase in different hormones. This is where sometimes it's sort of the kind of bloating and so on can occur. Even changes to some of those other symptoms that you sort of link there and link back to gut health, the mood, the hunger cues. Viola, for example, when she was younger, oh, felt absolutely terrible on the contraceptive pill, right? So they make a difference. These three make a difference. What you're putting into your body makes a difference. So I want you to kind of think about that as we move to the next question. What happens to the gut microbiome during menopause? If your gut microbiome is controlled by all of the health elements I've mentioned, what actually goes on inside of menopause? Because during menopause, mentioned at the beginning, you all experience a natural shift in the diversity of your microbiome. So if you think about it in two ways, you got this large shift. Doesn't happen overnight. It's not like one day you get to bed and you got this really healthy gut, and the next day you're thinking, fucking hell, I'm in menopause and my gut's gone to shit. It's not that. It's slow, but it's a large shift. It's not as slow, as the shift of the sex hormones, like like that shift in perimenopause, which can be anywhere between like sort of 5 and 10 years. This is a quicker shift. It's normally like 12 to 18 months where that large shift of that gut microbiota happens to sort of all of you, so you can't get away from that. But it just means your gut microbiome is naturally going to sort of decline, all of us, until the end of life. So we can't stop that, but it's not like, it's not like falling off a cliff. It's not rapidly declining. It's just slowly declining on year basis until the end of life. We can't stop that, but we can slow that up. We can strengthen the gut microbiome. And obviously we should. We should because, how important our gut microbiome is to so many aspects of our health now. You've seen, loads of people messaging us sort of like, I'm struggling with bloating and stuff. We've got loads of resources on this. So just ask away inside the group and we'll send you something that can help. Like the gut symptom tracker, I think we've got haven't sent that to someone for a while, so that'd be cool. But the diversity of the gut microbiome, we need to stress the importance. This is health, right? We've learned about all these things here. The controls all this controlled is that by a gut. If it's knocked off sync, you know, we're going to have issues. We go through that natural shift. All of these things, then they have that sort of, the gut microbiome is sort of if it's if we start to see a shift in inflammation, in stress management, in hormonal health and brain fog, um, all of these things are going to be exacerbated as we go through peri and into postmenopause. And this is where sort of all those symptoms link back, you know, link back to the gut microbiome, brain fog, low mood, read them all, mood swings, visceral fat, sleep challenges, anxiety. The list is endless. And, a lot of you, I'd imagine the vast majority of people listening here have probably um, at least one of those, if not all five, if not 10. But basically, the way that I've talked about this before, menopause symptom grouping. I'm going to talk about it on a live a bit more, but generally you can group them into sort of specific groups. So, generally three categories: inflammation, cortisol, and gut health. And these are all linked under gut health. They're typically the symptoms that would assign to gut health because, with the because they can all be impacted by improving the gut. Now, with our symptom grouping process, this is not like the only thing that we work on if someone comes to us and they've got issues, but it's probably the only thing that's going to fix these things, right? It's the biggest thing you want to look at. If you've got any of these, you want to look at your gut. It's going to let a bit read it in. Yeah, so things like brain fog, low mood, visceral fat, inability to sleep or so. I know so many women struggle with broken sleep. That there is more of a cortisol issue. The inability to fall asleep or the inability to stay in a deep sleep will be signs that there's something going off with your gut health. Anxiety, bloating, more common. That's an external sign. Low energy, especially if you're waking up feeling energized, and then throughout the day your energy just falls off like a cliff. That's a sign of gut issues. If you wake up after a night's sleep and you don't have any energy at that point, that's a sign of um, you know chronically elevated cortisol or cortisol mismanagement. Again, symptoms tell us a story. And in menopause, we just need to become very good storytellers because all of those symptoms will show what is actually going on in the body and what we want to look at. All right. We got, as I said, what's what we look at when clients come into us, have low energy. We ask those type of questions. What's your energy like when you wake up? What time are you waking up? Time you get to bed? Tell me that after, and if they tell me after, I wake up after a solid hour. All right. If you're only sleeping for an hour, then I don't imagine your energy is going to be very high, right? If you're sleeping for 6 hours, 7 hours, and you're still feeling fatigued in the morning, that could be a sign that we need to work on your cortisol. And we're going to look at things that are going to impact cortisol. And that is loads of stuff: food, caffeine, stress, everything. So yeah, the next slide. So yeah, we sort of, we've got to really address these things because if this large natural shift in gut diversity results in many health functions being knocked off, then then looking after your gut becomes vitally important. And this is the thing that I want to sort of head home about. Remember, we can impact these things. We can impact these things. You know, if a client comes to us, right, like for example, there's going to be bile changes as well during this phase of your life. Like with bile changes, because estrogen's not impacting it, you're going to have the actual substance or the quality of your bile is going to change. So maybe you might eat exactly the same as you did 10 years ago, but things are a bit harder to pass. Could be constipated. It's not normal not to have a bowel movement on a daily basis. Anything outside of a daily basis would be under the umbrella of constipation or very erratic, uncontrollable um, things like diarrhea, so on. There's trouble focusing this kind. If we use that umbrella, you know, we need to look at like if you're not pooping daily, we need to look at something. Is it a gut issue? Is it a fiber issue? Is it a stress issue? We need to look at these things because you know um, the gut stuff, the diet, lifestyle. it's going to impact your brain fog. We've talked about that. You're gonna forget things if the gut brain axis is slightly off. If you walk into a room, you're like, oh, I can't remember how I came into. What did I come into this room for? With brain fog. Could be trouble focusing generally. Could just be, general stuff at work as well. Just generally finding it hard to think of a particular task or focus on a particular task. A lot of women feel like they're developing sort of ADHD when they're in menopause because they find it hard to focus on one thing. They're doing one thing, the brain goes elsewhere. That would be a lot of that. Just sort of that overarching umbrella of kind of, energy in menopause. We just need to tackle it. There's sex hormones here. We need to address HRT here, of course. Can HRT help with these? Yeah, we've learned many times it's not a clean cut answer. HRT is unique for each person, can work differently for each person based on their underarching medical history. And it's not like HRT will always treat this and always treat that. But what we do know is HRT works very well with low mood, can also help with low, sleep challenges. Not so much broken sleep, but we can definitely help with things like sleep apnea, trouble falling asleep, getting a restless night's sleep. So it helps on those elements. Again, the dosages of HRT, as we know, they need to stay quite low for safety purposes. They're not as high to sort of fully replicate all of the natural shifts that estrogen occurs when you sort of lose estrogen in menopause. So you typically don't get much benefits from all those things that I've mentioned. Like these two are the big key. Sex hormone coming in close third. If we could replicate this to pubescent times, of course that would be phenomenal. But even HRT won't do that. But you know, I wouldn't rush to HRT personally. I'd rush to other elements first, see what I can address: diet, lifestyle, and then okay, I've nailed everything. Then I can look at this. I can approach this with my doctor, right? It's a really good one for those. We've highlighted them in red. This natural shift in gut microbiome, you know, it results in many health functionalities being knocked off. And obviously, if you're looking after your gut microbiome, it becomes vitally important. So we know now that a lot of our health functionalities are all centered by that gut microbiome. But when you go through menopause, it's off sync. So you're like, yeah, I get that. How do I bring it back in line? Right? How do I get those symptoms back in line? There's generally sort of a few ways that I would, right? There's, and this is what this is. Just tell me how to do it, please, right? Let's go through this together. Tell me how to do it, please. Two ways you can do this. You can do it yourself with our tips. I'm going to give you a little screenshot you can grab, and you can run away with it if that is what you choose to do. Or you can do it with this. We'll take care of everything. We'll go through everything on the next slides. Now, if you want to do it yourself, here is something to grab. Screen grab this. Right? The pros are it's cost effective. You don't need to pay. You can do it yourself. You get flexibility in your goals and your scheduling. You're entirely in control of your routine and you can adapt it as you see fit. Fantastic. You run away with this, 8,000 steps, 150 minutes. This is across a week here. So 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per day, 12-hour eating window, ideally more plant fats than animal fats. This is a fantastic number to aim for in terms of like gut microbiota diversity, over 30 unique plants across the week. All right, 150 minutes of cardio across the week, 16 minutes of high intensity cardio a week, 2 resistance training workouts per week. You don't need to tell me why I recommend that. I mean, I can tell you if you want. 8 hours of sleep, 10 minutes of morning light, 15 minutes of something joyful. That is daily. And be of service to someone. We don't talk about psychological well-being enough. And this is one. The cons of doing it by yourself, the flexibility and goals. You've got too much flexibility. There's no urgency. There's no solid plan. I'm leaving this up here, by the way, so you can screenshot it. No solid plan, therefore slow to no progress. We've seen this countless times. People have been following us for years. Oh, I've been struggling for years. And, they contact us on year 4. And they're like, just help me out. It's the case. When you don't have that accountability, as I've mentioned here, no accountability, no one's checking in on your stuff. No plateaus. So you get plateaus or burnout. If you do reach them, they're going to be tough to navigate. Any challenges, social occasions, stall progress, excessive fatigue, you're on your own. This is a problem. overwhelmed from information. Loads of absolute crap out there on TikTok, loads of misinformation. Um, it would require 1,000 me's just debunking loads of the misinformation on there. I did it with something called seed oils the other day. I can't do it. I can't do it consistently. It's too tiring. Sorting through conflicting advice, that is confusing and counterproductive. But if you screen grab that, it's a really good marker to aim for. Now, obviously, personalizing something, you can do it with us through MYM Metabolic Alchemy. We do sort of comprehensive blood analysis, 55 blood markers to uncover the root cause of health issues. We do this with the gut health screening thing as well. We use professional blood grade analysis. That is to make sure that your profile is not just good, it's not just in healthy range, it's in optimal range. As you know, with that, you get the precise data you need and expert insights to help you burn fat, improve muscle tone, and feel like your best self. It doesn't matter your age. You don't have an age problem. You have a cellular issue. If you've got poor energy production, it's going to be you've got to come from the cell upwards. You've got to look from the gut upwards. And this is the problem that people face is they just focus on, I don't know, if they're on a diet, they just focus on calories or they just pull out carbohydrates. Here's some of the ladies that have been through our program. Some of them might be watching now. I can't see anybody that is actually live on there now. Oh yeah, yeah, maybe here's one. I won't point her out. And then here's another cool thing that I thought was brilliant. This is Wendy. She did her potatoes. She lost over 30 kilos, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to go to the supermarket and carry how much I've lost," and that's how much she lost so far. Anyway, she's awesome. So this is the gut health stuff. Now, inside, for those who are coaching with us right now, you have access to obviously us and you can ask questions, but you have access to all the fiber talks and stuff like that. So if it's something that you want specifically answered, obviously you can ask us now, you can ask us tomorrow, whenever. But it's something that I really am trying to drill home. I suppose my message for 2025 in our coaching program is two things. It's protein, to offset osteoporosis, things like that, and gut integrity, and in brackets, fiber content, fermented food, variation of those things. So I'm just going to go back here. 30 unique plants. We'll go through that in a minute in the Q&A. But obviously, if you're interested in this, MYM Metabolic Alchemy, just send us a message after this. I will flick you a link to book in for a 5-minute chat to see if you're a good fit. Because if I can't help you, then can't help you. You can't join. But if I can, we can potentially really just change your life. So that's that. I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A right now about specifically, well, it can be about anything. I always say gut stuff, but it can be about anything because while I'm waiting for those calls to come through, while I'm waiting for those questions to come through, I want to talk about why the metabolic alchemy, what we focus on, especially in 2025. And I think you'll be surprised because people think it's just about nutrition. People think it's about exercise, maybe. It's not the case. Like one of the biggest things that we focus on, like I just mentioned, blood markers and stuff like that. One of the things that we have to touch on is cardiovascular, fitness. People don't put enough emphasis on this. We've got cardiovascular respiratory system, right? We have the heart, blood vessels, lungs. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death worldwide. So if we protect the heart, it's one of the top goals for the program for health and longevity. One of the ladies, I'm not going to call her out, she can put her hand up now. She was having heart palpitations, real, she literally thought, every other day she's having a heart attack. They've gone since doing this, since doing our program. And she'll probably jump on and go, that's me. But I won't call her out just in case she wants to stay private. That's one of the systems that we have to target. The other system is metabolic, right? Liver, pancreas, and the broader physiology that sort of mediates the production and storage of energy. If we maintain optimal mitochondrial function, that means the cell, and reduce fat storage around organs, we are going to increase your longevity, your quality of life. We're going to improve we're going to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, dementia, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and certain cancers like colorectal cancers and things like that. We've got musculoskeletal. We have to look at bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons, cartilage. We need to maintain your strength and your bone density, and that's why I said two resistance sessions a week. Of course, it is essential for quality of metabolic health due to sort of muscle's unique role as a glucose sink. What happens is when you have trained muscles, if you're going to the gym or you're exercising at home doing bodyweight stuff, excess glucose that comes in from a cake, from biscuits or whatever, the muscle will go. Now, if you don't have a lot of muscle, that's going to have to be tucked away somewhere into our fat cell. It's going to go into a fat cell. Or it goes into the liver, and then the liver becomes inundated with glucose, and that's how you get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So we have to look at those things. We look at psychological well-being. We've got to find the meaning, in life. We've got to enjoy quality relationships. That's our well-being. It's a focus. One of our non-negotiables every single day for our clients is connect. Connect with somebody you care about, you love. It could be a text, it could be a call, it could be dinner without a phone. The evidence shows it's worth your time. Authentic connection is the number one predictor of happiness and longevity, right? They're the four systems, right? And then there's the things that we focus on specifically in our program. Blood